There was a man named Nnamdi who sold meat at the local market. His meat was famous for its taste. Everyone agreed it was the best around, but there was something very unusual about his stall. Unlike every other meat seller who struggled to keep flies away from their stalls, Nnamdi never had a single fly buzzing around his meat. The meat looked fresh and perfect. People loved it but also felt a strange sense of wonder about why his stall was so different. The villagers began to whisper about Nnamdi. Why are there no flies on his meat? One woman asked. It's strange, isn't it? Replied another. The more they talked, the more curious everyone became. Some thought Nnamdi was using a special trick, maybe a secret herb or spray to keep the flies away. Others wondered if it was magic. The mystery of his fly-free stall made everyone suspicious, but they still lined up to buy his delicious meat. Among the villagers was a young woman named Amaka. She was clever and brave, and she loved solving mysteries. When she heard the rumors about Nnamdi's meat, she decided she would find out his secret. Amaka was determined to discover the truth, no matter how long it took. She came up with a plan. She would pretend to be interested in Nnamdi, so he would trust her. That way she could get close enough to find out what he was hiding and why no flies came near his meat. The next day, Amaka went to the market with a warm smile on her face. She walked up to Nnamdi's stall and said, "Hello Nnamdi, your meat looks so fresh and delicious. What's your secret?" Nnamdi looked at her with a friendly smile. "It's just a special touch," he said, not giving anything away. Amaka laughed and began visiting his stall every day, bringing him gifts and acting friendly. She wanted him to believe she was really interested in him. As days went by, Nnamdi started to trust Amaka. He thought she was a kind and sweet woman, and he enjoyed her visits. But Amaka was always watching him closely, hoping to catch him doing something unusual. She noticed every move he made and every time he prepared his stall. She was curious, but Nnamdi never let his guard down. It was almost as if he knew he had to be careful around her. Amaka's curiosity grew stronger each day. One night, Amaka decided to follow Nnamdi home. She hid in the shadows, making sure he couldn't see her. She watched as he walked quickly, carrying a small bag in his hand. When they reached his house, Amaka peeked through the window. Inside, she saw Nnamdi sharpening his knives in the dim light. The room was dark and the strange shadows danced on the walls. Amaka felt a chill as she watched him. The room felt creepy and she wondered what Nnamdi was hiding there. The next morning, Amaka arrived at the market very early. She hoped to catch Nnamdi setting up his stall before anyone else arrived. But when she got there, she was surprised. Nnamdi's stall was already perfectly set up, with the meat neatly arranged. It looked as if he had done it all in the dark without needing any light. Amaka's curiosity grew even stronger. How did he manage to prepare everything so quickly? She was determined to find out his secret no matter what. Amaka tried asking the other sellers if they knew anything about Nnamdi's strange stall, but every time she asked, people looked away and refused to answer. "It's best not to ask," whispered an old man with a fearful look in his eyes. No one wanted to talk about Nnamdi or his meat stall. Amaka felt frustrated, but she did not give up. She knew she had to keep going, even though the mystery was becoming darker and scarier with each clue. Days passed and Amaka continued visiting Nnamdi, pretending to be his friend. One evening, as they sat together under the stars, Nnamdi looked at her closely and asked, "Why are you so interested in me?" His eyes seemed to look right through her, and Amaka felt her heart race. She forced herself to smile and replied, "I just think you're very interesting." Nnamdi nodded slowly, but his smile was strange, almost as if he knew she was hiding something. Amaka felt a shiver run down her spine. That night, Amaka decided to take a bigger risk. She sneaked into Nnamdi's house while he was away looking for clues. She searched every corner, but there was nothing unusual at first. Then, behind a curtain, she found a small door. Her hands trembled as she opened it, revealing a cold, dark room filled with strange tools and jars. The jars seemed to glow faintly, casting an airy light. The air smelled funny, unlike anything Amaka had ever smelled before. She felt a chill run through her. As she looked around the dark room, Amaka's eyes fell on a piece of meat lying on a table. It looked different from any meat she had ever seen. Her heart began to pound as she got closer. The meat looked strange, almost too smooth and perfect. A terrifying thought crept into her mind. Could it be human meat? Amaka felt her stomach twist with fear and disgust. She wanted to run away, but she knew she needed to find proof to show the villagers. Just then, Amaka heard footsteps outside. Nnamdi was coming back. She quickly hid in the shadows, holding her breath and trying to stay calm. She watched as he entered the room, his face calm and focused. Nnamdi didn't notice her. He walked up to the strange meat, picked it up and began whispering strange words over it, almost like he was casting a spell. Amaka's heart pounded as she realized the terrible truth. Nnamdi was using dark magic to keep the flies away. Amaka stayed hidden, watching carefully. She knew Nnamdi's terrible secret. He wasn't selling regular meat at all. He was selling human meat, and he was using dark magic to make it look fresh and delicious. Amaka's mind raced with horror. She had to warn the villagers before anyone else ate the meat. She waited until Nnamdi left, then slipped out quietly. Her heart still pounding, she knew she had to be brave to protect her village from Nnamdi's dark and dangerous secret. The next day, Amaka went to the village elders and told them everything she had seen. The elders listened with wide eyes, shocked and fearful. They couldn't believe what they were hearing, but they trusted Amaka. They knew she wouldn't lie about something so serious. The elders gathered the villagers and shared Amaka's story. People gasped, covering their mouths in horror. They had been eating Nnamdi's meat for so long, never knowing the truth. Fear and anger spread through the crowd like wildfire. The villagers gathered at Nnamdi's stall, surrounding him and demanding answers. Nnamdi looked surprised, but he tried to stay calm. He denied everything, saying Amaka was making it up, but the people were not convinced. They remembered the strange lack of flies and how tasty the meat was. Too tasty to be normal. "Why are there no flies on your meat, Nnamdi?" one villager asked, his voice shaking with anger. Nnamdi's face grew tense as he realized his secret might not stay hidden any longer. Amaka stepped forward, her voice strong and steady, as she explained everything she had seen at Nnamdi's house. She described the hidden room, the strange tools, and the way he whispered over the meat as if he was casting a spell. The villagers listened, their faces filled with horror and disbelief. They glanced at each other, realizing that Amaka's story explained the strange things they had noticed. Their fear turned into anger, and they demanded Nnamdi to tell the truth. Nnamdi's calm expression faded, replaced by a look of worry. Nnamdi took a step back, trying to escape, but the villagers surrounded him. There was no way out. "Tell us the truth," they shouted, their voice growing louder and more insistent. Nnamdi looked around at the angry faces and knew he couldn't keep his secret any longer. Slowly, he admitted he was using magic to make the meat look fresh. The villagers gasped, but he didn't say anything more. They demanded to know if it was truly human meat. With a defeated sigh, Nnamdi confessed everything. He told the villagers that the meat he sold was indeed human meat, and that he used dark magic to make it look fresh and keep the flies away. The villagers were horrified. They looked at him with a mix of anger and disgust, unable to believe that he had been tricking them for so long. Some people felt sick just thinking about it. They couldn't believe that they had been eating something so terrible. The elders stepped forward. Their faces were grave. "You have betrayed this village in the worst way, Nnamdi," one elder said, his voice filled with disappointment. "You have broken our trust and brought darkness into our lives." Nnamdi hung his head, unable to meet their eyes. He knew he couldn't escape their judgment. The villagers murmured in agreement, their voices filled with anger and hurt. They had trusted Nnamdi, and he had betrayed them in a way they could never forgive. The elders spoke quietly among themselves, deciding what to do with Nnamdi. After a few moments, they turned to the crowd. "Nnamdi is no longer welcomed in this village," one elder announced. "He must leave and never return." The villagers cheered in agreement, relieved to get rid of him. They knew they would never feel safe as long as he was around. Nnamdi looked at the ground, realizing he had lost everything because of his dark deeds. The villagers watched as Nnamdi left, walking down the dusty path with his head low. No one felt sorry for him. They were too angry and hurt. They were glad to be rid of his terrible secret, but they knew they would never forget what he had done. Amaka stood among them, feeling both proud and relieved. She knew she had done the right thing by uncovering the truth, but the horror of what she had found still lingered in her mind. As Nnamdi disappeared into the distance, the villagers turned to Amaka, their faces filled with gratitude. "Thank you, Amaka," one of the elders said. "Without your bravery, we would never have known the truth." Amaka smiled, feeling a warm sense of pride. She had helped protect her village even though it had been frightening and difficult. The villagers promised her that they would always remember her courage and the way she had saved them from Nnamdi's terrible secret. Over the next few days, the village slowly returned to normal. The people were careful about what they ate and they avoided buying meat from strangers. They couldn't shake the memory of what had happened, but they knew they had to move forward. The villagers felt closer to each other, more protective of their community. They promised to look out for one another and to be careful about trusting people too quickly. Nnamdi's betrayal had taught them a valuable lesson. Amaka continued to live her life in the village, but she was changed by the experience. She often thought about the dark room in Nnamdi's house and the strange things she had seen there. She hoped she would never have to face something like that again, but she knew she would always be brave enough to protect her village. Her story became famous in the village and people told it to their children, reminding them to always be careful and wise. The elders decided to close Nnamdi's stall for good. They took down his sign and removed all traces of his business. The villagers felt a sense of relief as they saw the stall empty, as if a dark cloud was lifted. They knew they could never erase what had happened, but they felt better knowing that Nnamdi was gone. They wanted to start afresh and they looked forward to happier times without the fear that haunted them. Amaka became a hero in the village. People admired her bravery and thanked her whenever they saw her. She was happy to have helped, but she remained humble, knowing she had simply done what was right. She hoped her story would inspire others to be brave and to stand up for what was right, even when it was difficult. The village respected her and she became a role model for the younger generations. The villagers held a small celebration to honor Amaka's bravery. They gathered in the town square, singing and dancing in her honor. The children looked up to her with admiration and the elders praised her wise wisdom and courage. Amaka felt grateful for their kindness, but she reminded them that it was a team effort. "We are all stronger together," she said, and the villagers nodded in agreement, feeling united and proud of their community. As time passed, people slowly stopped talking about Nnamdi. Life returned to normal and the village felt peaceful once again. The market was lively and people enjoyed their meals without fear. They knew they had learned a valuable lesson and they promised to always be cautious and to look out for one another. Amaka's bravery had brought them closer together and they felt stronger as a community because of her. Some villagers still whispered about Nnamdi's dark secret, wondering where he had gone. They were curious, but no one wanted him to come back. They were happy that he had gone and hoped he would never return. They kept an eye out for anything unusual just in case they felt safe, knowing that they were now more careful and aware. Amaka continued to live her life with pride and purpose. She kept a close watch on the village, always ready to protect her community. Her heart was strong and filled with a sense of duty. She knew that her bravery had made a difference and she was determined to keep her village safe. Her story became a reminder of the power of courage and truth, and the villagers respected her even more. Whenever new people came to the market, the villagers watched them carefully. They wanted to make sure they could trust everyone who entered their community. They had learned to be cautious and they knew that being careful was the best way to protect themselves. Amaka's story had changed them and they were grateful for her wisdom. Children often asked their parents about Amaka's story, curious to know about her bravery. Their parents told them details, reminding them to always be careful and to speak up when they saw something wrong. The children listened with wide eyes, inspired by Amaka's courage and determined to be brave like her. Amaka's story became a legend in the village. People told it around the fire, passing it down through generations. It became a story of caution and bravery, teaching the villagers to value truth and to stand up for what was right. The village felt safe and peaceful, with Amaka's story reminding them of the importance of courage and community. As Amaka grew older, she continued to watch over the village. She was respected by everyone and they often came to her for advice. Her wisdom and bravery had made her a trusted figure and she was happy to help her community in any way she could. She was grateful for the life she had built and she was proud to be part of the village. The village elders often spoke of Amaka's bravery, reminding everyone of the lessons they had learned. They thanked her for her courage and reminded the villagers to always protect their community. The village felt united and they were proud to have Amaka among them. One day, Amaka stood in the market looking at the place where Nnamdi's stall had once been. She remembered everything she had to go through to uncover the truth. She felt proud of her bravery and grateful for the village's support. She knew she had done the right thing and she was at peace with her choice. The villagers gathered around her, sharing memories and laughing together. They felt safe and happy knowing that they had each other. They knew that as long as they stood together, they could overcome any challenge. Amaka smiled, feeling a deep sense of love for her village and her people. Amaka's story continued to be told for years, inspiring others to be brave and to stand up for what was right. The villagers were proud of their strong community and they knew they could always count on each other. They felt safe knowing that they had learned from the past and were prepared for the future. As years went by, the village flourished, filled with joy and peace. The market was lively, children played happily and everyone enjoyed life without fear. They remembered Amaka's bravery and thanked her for making their village a better place. They knew they were stronger together. And so, the village remained safe and peaceful, with Amaka watching over everyone. Her story became a lesson for all, teaching them the importance of courage.